One.
Coming to you live from a absolutely destroyed formerly democratic wasteland. We are the survivors
of
the liberal apocalypse.
of the liberal carny apocalypse.
Coming to you live. Okay. We are the survivors of the alt-right apocalypse. The few, the brave, the bitchy, once more wading into battle on a completely different topic. I mean, if you tuned in and thought it was going to be about that, it's not going to be about that. It's going to be a completely different topic. It's another situation of clueless bloomers, clueless boomers trying to about that. It's going to be a completely of clueless trying political. Allison, and with me is of course Brian, obeyed Karen Strong.
Well, they didn't obey me this time.
No, they didn't, and but there's always a silver lining. But we'll get to that. But first, we want to get into this discussion about Adolescence, the Netflix series, which is now a factual account of the situation with boys in schools. And we are going to be talking about the British Parliament discussing this now factual account of what's happening in British schools in regards to schoolboys. Is that an accurate assessment?
You put factual in air quotes, right?
No, I was just wiggling. No, I didn't put air quotes. I mean, completely.
Yeah, no, this
straight
isn't a factual. This isn't a factual account. It was based on some Muslim fucking kid who stabbed a bunch of chicks at young girls at a freaking Taylor Swift dancing class.
Yeah, but I've got into this argument in Twitter. There was a white boy who stabbed a girl once, or no, another boy, I think, once, or it was a girl, once. I mean, at one point, I think it was like 7 years ago or something. So it applies, right? It could have been about that.
No, that's not what it was about.
Yeah, I know. But there is something else that they could have done something like on. Like recently, there's been this rise in. It was like 7. So it.
No. About. And they literally relaxed the rules because Madam Justice Hale said, "Oh well, a misguided ethic of equality has led to some very unequal treatment of women and girls.
Yeah,
so
women being incarcerated.
Even easier on them."
Yeah, because patriarchy, when women commit crimes, they shouldn't go to jail. Instead, they should go to spa treatment. But actually, this is worse, if you can believe it. They literally got rid of any kind of incarceration for girls under the age of 18 in the UK. There's nowhere to send them. If they commit a crime, they do not go to jail. They just get residential, like
in home with an ankle monitor kind of thing.
In home with an ankle monitor.
Community
service. And what they've seen apparently is a rise in girl gang activity. What a shock. Yeah, because what's happening is all the gangs are now recruiting girls to do their dirty work because they don't go to jail. And now what we've had recently is an elderly man was beaten to death. I believe it was beaten to death. I don't think they used weapons by a girl gang, I think on a subway. And another elderly woman was attacked. So do you think they'll ever do an Adolescence on that?
No,
of course not. But they'll just continue to listen to feminists.
If they did do an Adolescence on those things, it would be all about how these male gangsters lured these girls, groomed them, and lured them into these gangs, right? And made them do what they did.
no responsibility with being the reason why they're doing that, because they've made it so that girls are not jailed. So that become very attractive as potential gang members now, because they will just, like, they can do whatever. They can be drug mules, they can do enforcement, and they're just back out on the street. It's like, it's perfect. Just get those girls out murdering and raping. I mean, it's not even rape when women do it. So, and you're going to have a perfect reign of terror that the UK cannot oppose. But what's critical here is boys. And I have some information about what's happening to boys in UK juvenile detention. They have implemented new policy that allows them to use pepper spray and tasers on boys. So while girls have no imprisonment, like they can't be imprisoned now, there's nowhere to send them, they've just made boys' incarceration that much worse. Hopefully that'll solve the problem of girl crime. You know, maybe a girl could do a crime, and what they can do, what the British Parliament can do, is every time a girl commits a crime, they can find a boy and tase him in the balls, and that should solve things.
No?
Just some random boy. Okay, let's, shall we get into this? Or do you want to give like an overview, Brian, of this situation?
Do you want to do before we do you want to do the things?
I guess I should do the things.
Yeah.
The things should be done.
You guys got to jump to step 5.
So. Sorry, everybody. We jumped to step 5.
Before we even watched the video. So,
before we watched the video, we ranted, that's got to be a new record for us. But yes, okay. So if you would like to send a message to us at any point throughout the show, a message and perhaps a tip, if you enjoy this content, go to feedthebadger.com/justthetip. It is the very best way for you to send us a tip, and the best way for you to send us a comment, because you get a little bit more space to elucidate your thoughts. Is that how you pronounce it? And you get to avoid YouTube's comment enhancement system. So that's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Very much appreciated if you that use that method. And okay, Brian, take it away.
All right.
Let's watch.
So
something.
Yeah. So this is the creator of the show, or one of the creators of the show, Jack Thorne, who is, here, and he is speaking at at Parliament on adolescence. I went through almost the whole video, and he's only there for the first 50 minutes, and then they go into some different people to talk about. But ultimately, the whole panel, or whatever it is, the whole hearing is about boys and misogyny in schools and stuff like that. So we can get into some of the other clips. Just a word of caution or something, just a bit of a disclaimer. I'm using Riverside to give me the time codes, but they're not precise. Like, they'll give me a time code, but it's not quite when the thing starts. It's actually it's a later. So I'm kind of trying to find where this is at. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to play from here and see if this is right.
So they just don't say anything. Those sorts of conversations happening within a school environment, so that the school can challenge that and change that could change education for them profoundly. It isn't the show that's done that, it's the conversation after the show that's done that.
Just add to that an anecdotal discussion point, but just a conversation that I had been a part of with someone who was a secondary school head teacher of a large secondary school in Manchester.
I'm sorry the volume on this video is low. I don't know that there's much I can do about it. I mean, I can bump it up over here, but it is low. So.
Okay, yeah, Allison could also get her cat to shut up. Give me a minute. I got to get some coffee.
Okay. I'll play.
I'm not sure why she's gone a little bit squirrely. Might be because Jonathan is left.
Yeah. So Jack Thorne, by the way, I believe he's on the spectrum, if that's not obvious. So I think that, well, anyway, let's just continue.
You didn't actually know what I did as my job was saying, it was very sort of felt as though the show sort of was shining a light just on schools, and it's not there, it's really down to the parents and the families. And so for me, I think if you can engage people like that in this conversation, then hopefully that might allow, again, those people to search for answers. As Jack said, we're not offering the answers. We're just hoping this conversation has been started now.
In terms of political reaction, there has been a lot of political reaction for it. Did that surprise you? And what are you hoping that political reaction, if you're hoping, might lead eventually to?
All right, I'm just pausing it there for the banana again. I just want to tell you guys that I watch a lot of this, and what it seems to me is that the creators of the show were earnestly trying to create a story that was essentially suggesting that there are a multitude of factors, that it's not just Andrew Tate or toxic masculinity, but that it's all these other elements that could contribute to this. And I think that the politicization is coming from outside of that, although I think they have a general sort of like, feminist like tone, like way of seeing reality that is going to affect it to some degree. But I think they were trying to be kind of like apolitical in their approach. So this woman works for public broadcasting, or used to work for public broadcasting, and she's on the parliamentary board here. And she is asking what are the political outcomes of this show?
What are the hoped for?
It's been
sort of
hugely surprising, and I talked about it a bit earlier, but for me, legislation that protects our kids from the internet is a useful thing to do. I wouldn't be so bold as to say what that legislation should be, but I think it should be larger than the stuff currently under discussion. And I do think that what Australia is doing is very bold. And
go ahead, Alison.
So the kids need to be protected from the internet, not from girls that you've basically unleashed on the world.
And the adults who don't give a shit about them. This is the thing, right? The adults who rig the system so that boys don't succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And the girls who are as if loser, right? With 80% of young men.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I'm sorry, this isn't about TV content. This isn't about what they're watching on TV. It's not about what they're reading on the internet. If they are if Andrew Tate is resonating with 13, 14-year-old boys, there's a reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason for that, and that reason is they are being starved of something in their real lives.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not every kid is my kid, my youngest, right? 2 months after he started his first job, we're in the car and he says, Mom, this new job is really helping me with my social anxiety. And I was like, what? You have social anxiety? He's like, duh. And I said, why didn't you ever tell me? And he says, well, because I'm a teenager. I figured it was normal.
Mm.
And I was like, actually, yeah, it is normal for a teenager, right? Not every freaking teenager, not every young person is grounded in reality like that and can say, you know what, I have social anxiety, but that's normal for my age, right? There's nothing actually wrong with me. I'm just a normal teenager, right? And it's you see these, I guess you could say there is sort of the Facebook effect, right? And when you see people who are desperate to get the perfect house and keep it perfectly nice and have the perfect car and it's always clean and do all of those things and go on the perfect vacations, and they basically spend themselves into debt on useless shit, right? And it's all because everybody's sharing on Facebook what exciting place they went to on vacation, right? And what exciting new car they have. And, the new exciting new throw pillows they got for their new living room suite, right? And, the new kitchen rebuild that they're doing, right? Because it's been 5 years now. So, it's time to change everything and, remodel the whole thing. And it's like, yeah, when you add social media to that, it's just like in a place like James Bay, right? Where you have you had this like absolute crisis of kids suiciding, and Native and Inuit kids suiciding and huffing gasoline and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it's like, well, what are their issues? They live in a freaking barren wasteland, but they do have TV, right? And so they look at the show Roseanne, and they think that's how poor people live in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Okay, my husband makes $130,000 a year, and our house is half the size of fucking Roseanne's house, the original show. Right? Okay, like we could be, we're well above the median income with just my husband's salary, and we could not afford the house that Roseanne, who worked in a plastics factory separating plastic forks from each other after they came off the mold, right? And her husband, who did like mechanics and stuff like that, maybe did some trucking or whatever, right? They could afford a nicer house than us. And well, actually they couldn't, and they couldn't afford 3 kids to put in it either, because that's TV. Right? That's TV. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, so you got these kids and they're like torn between these two worlds, right? The world that they see on TV that they think is reality, it's not. And the world that their elders are telling them that they have to be loyal to, right? Which is you have to respect your heritage, you have to stay here, you have to hunt and fish and do all of those things, and you have to live here in this frozen freaking wasteland, right? And that's what you have to do. And it's like, I don't know, that would be a really, really, really difficult thing for a teenager to have to deal with, right? I want what those guys on the TV have.
Yeah.
Well, okay, here I have a question. How did this issue about, why is this issue about role models just suddenly becoming a problem with Andrew Tate? What about all the rap stars who legitimately have murdered people, dealt drugs, and all of that? Where was the outrage then? Why is it with this dude who used persuasion to get women to take their clothes off on a camera? Like, why this guy?
Because the rap guys are actually not the problem. Like, what they're doing to men is actually like something that these people like. And maybe the thing that we're told that Andrew Tate does to men is that they claim to have a problem with is not something they have a problem with, because they're liars. And I mean, like, Andrew Tate doesn't just do the cam girl thing that everyone keeps relating him to. He also tells men things like how to be healthy, how to make money, how to be successful, how to be assertive, how to like essentially be able to say no, establish boundaries. The kinds of things that the government is the most terrified of is a man that can say no. And that's the thing. Rappers don't teach that. Okay, they teach you materialism. They teach you they simp for women too.
Well, and they teach rappers teach men to say fuck you and go to jail, not to say no.
They basically
not to say no and just be successful.
Right. Like that's I think that there's a reason why, and that it's got more to do with what does somebody like Andrew Tate or anybody in the sort of manosphere, red pill space, what are they giving to men that the establishment men, that the apparatus, that the cathedral supports, what are these guys giving that these guys are not? And I think that's the main difference. If you're a big fan of the rapper, like the Diddy guy, you end up in jail, or you end up, like chasing a dream you can't possibly conceive, or just buying a bunch of their products, their brand. But if you follow somebody in the manosphere that'll teach you how to invest and how to like save up and how to, do these good things, and most of all, probably be able to stand up to authority and question it. Well, guess what? That's what they have a problem with.
Yeah, no, standing up to authority in a lawful way, right? And that's the thing, because if somebody's standing up to authority in an unlawful way, they can just stick them in jail, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they don't like them clearly explaining how they're full of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And without getting angry or in a way that is easy to cast in a particular narrative of violence.
Yep.
Okay, so let's watch some more.
All right, so they're getting into this section is what I was trying to get to. It's let me see, 24, facilitating discussions in educational settings. So basically, they want to do this in an educational context.
Very interesting, and if they can pull it off, I hope that other countries, particularly ourselves, would follow it.
Thank you. Thank you, Christine. I just wanted to pick up on one of the points where Christine had left off around facilitating conversations. Emily, you said that this isn't just we're not going to outsource, or we shouldn't be outsourcing young people to whether it's the internet or whether it's television programs. You mentioned that there are some places that are facilitating that conversation and having good impacts. Is it possible for you to follow up in an email some of the examples or some of the schools that are doing it well, so that we can see what they're doing and perhaps learn from that for our committee?
Yes, and I believe Tender are very involved in the rollout, and they are a brilliant group of people that are thinking very seriously about discussions that happen afterwards. So yeah, no, we can absolutely do that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Catherine.
Thank you, and apologies as well for being late, but thank you both so much, and thank you for bringing this programme to us. For me as a mum of 2 boys, it's been really, really important. It's opened up really important conversations for me, but also I was a governor before I became an MP of a secondary school, and sexism was at best hidden, and kind of a little bit under the radar. And now what I think, talking to parents who've still got children at secondary school, it's not hidden and the misogyny is out there. I had one example.
Good. Can I say that? Good. Because these are the people who actively discriminate against boys in academia. Like, they, not just in terms of expecting boys to act like girls, which has led to things like Adderall and Ritalin poisoning, and I'm going to call it poisoning.
Yeah.
Because we found out that Adderall increases the rate of psychosis, and that Ritalin, I believe it was Ritalin, actually removes an inch off of boys' heights. We've been poisoning generations of boys so they'll sit still and act like girls. And we're doing so because feminist teachers, in particular feminist teachers, convinced everybody that it's patriarchy that's forcing boys to do boy things and stop being like girls. How convenient.
Yeah, and so if they can't be like girls, it's because there's something wrong with them. There's some kind of disease at work.
That needs to be medicated away. Actually, that the horrible dread Satan Archie has gotten into their brains and forced them to be boy-like. Like, this is, and then not just that, not just we have actually sacrificed the health of boys in order for them to be more aesthetically pleasing to the school industrial complex. We've also, these teachers are responsible for discriminating against boys in terms of marking and in terms of punishment. And then we have all of the lenience given girls. It's not just getting rid of girls' juvenile detention facilities and then leading to a whole bunch of girl gang activity. It's also lenience in schools, lenience socially, lenience in their families, lenience for their teachers. It's this constant drumbeat of lenience. And boys are seeing that and saying, and pointing it out. What does that woman say? Oh, misogyny is open. What she means is criticizing girls and criticizing these teachers is considered misogyny.
Yep.
Yep.
Criticizing them for this behavior, for this overt discrimination against boys is considered misogyny. And you know why they do that? Because they want boys to shut up, sit down, and become girls. So they just use their emotional nuke that's just, you don't have the right to speak or think or have an opinion because it's misogynist.
Yeah.
It's like punching someone and saying, yeah, I'm bleeding on my carpet.
I just don't understand. I just don't understand how primary schools and middle schools that are almost entirely populated by female staff, okay, managed to produce all of these misogynists. How could that have happened?
And how is it that, once again, we have the people in power? That's the women. They control the grades. They control the punishments. They control the environment. They control whether or not boys are given things that they need. They control everything in this environment. That's why we consider it to be a crime for, well, not in the UK, because the UK is basically a bunch of barbarians. But in civilized parts of the universe, we consider it a crime for a UK female teacher to have sex with a young person under her care. In the rest of the world, I don't know. I know you people in the UK, you don't understand that concept, but we actually hold female teachers accountable for their sexual crimes against boys in the civilized parts of the world. I know you haven't really, and you don't have that concept yet, but we do that here. There's a reason. It's because those women control so much of their lives, so much of their future, so much of what will be seen as their potential. And so what we have here, just let me finish. What we have here is a situation where the people in power once again get to determine that any criticism of them is somehow religiously taboo. It is socially taboo. You can't do that, right? It's misogyny. To criticize this entire landscape dominated by women is misogyny because you're criticizing women because it's dominated by women. This is... Okay, go ahead, Karen.
No, what's infuriating too is that, I mean, like, okay, when you consider the rate of single motherhood, right? And then you consider the staffing, the employment rates between men and women in daycare, in preschool, in elementary school. Like boys, the entirety of their formative years, where they are learning, right, how to see the world, how to see themselves within the world. Okay? This is entirely dominated by women, right? These are the years, the crucial years between age 2 or 3, when kids start developing self-concept, right? They're getting an idea of how does the world around me work, and where and how do I fit into it, right? And that entire section, developmental period, right, between then and early teens, okay, is dominated by adult women. And now you got the women saying, well, I just don't know how this could have happened. And I'm like, yeah, well, maybe it's happening because the first daily male role model, and I'm not saying daily like 7 days a week, I'm saying 5 days a week, an hour a day, right? Daily male role model, and not during summers and school holidays, that a lot of these boys have in their lives, right, who were raised in men deserts, right, is their grade 8 math teacher, right? And everything else, their entire lives, up to that point, has been completely controlled by women. Women decide whether they're good or whether they're bad. Women decide whether they get a snack or whether they don't, whether they get to go to the bathroom or whether they don't, right? Whether they sit there and pee their pants and get laughed at by their classmates because the teacher didn't want to let them go to the bathroom, right? All of these things, all of these little humiliations. And it's just like, and it's not even just grading, right? It's assignments, okay? Like boys like different kinds of assignments in school. Boys prefer timed tests on average. Girls prefer open-ended classwork. Well, guess what dominates the curriculum? Open-ended classwork, right? And boys, for reading material, they prefer comic books with lots of words in them that they have to read, right? Or things like the Guinness Book of World Records, or horrible histories, or something really interesting, right? Ooh, I'm reading about Elizabeth Bathory. Oh my God, she was gross, right?
Oh, we got apologia for Elizabeth Bathory now. She was a woman, so she didn't do anything.
Yeah, whatever. But it's
nothing.
it's like you look at what boys, right? What they prefer, right? And you look at the elementary school bookshelf in the classroom. It's like Junie B. Jones novellas, right? And I'm like, boys don't want to read that. They don't want to read that. Where's the Guinness Book of World Records? Where's the horrible histories? I don't care if it's gory. Right? Where's the World of Warcraft strategy manual? When my oldest was like 7, he'd sit on the toilet, right, reading that thing, right? He read it like multiple times from start to finish. I'd walk by the bathroom. I'd be like, Jack, are you still in there? He's like, yeah, I'm reading. And I'm like, you're going to give yourself fucking hemorrhoids. Get off the toilet. It's been an hour.
Also, I wanted to add to that, there is now verified evidence that even when there is no boy present and it's just a test and a teachers test boys lower. They literally score them lower on tests.
Yeah.
And this is like, I was reading, I've been reading Christina Hoff Sommers' The War on Boys. This is not new. This was started in the 90s based on essentially, I think it was Diane Gilliam. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was Gilliam. She invented this idea that girls are losing their voice.
Oh, they're being shortchanged. Yeah, they're being shortchanged.
Based on nothing. And in fact, it was based on a bunch of interviews of girls who went to an all-girls school named Emma Willard. And they said that, I don't know, for whatever reason, they were feeling silenced, maybe because they were at an all-girls school. And I've noticed that women just spend a lot of time trying to destroy each other's autonomy. Yeah. So I mean, maybe that was the issue, not that girls were being shortchanged in schools.
That study that she produced, right, that girls were being shortchanged. Okay, it basically it did interview boys as well, right? And both boys and girls.
The first one didn't. The first one didn't.
But the second one did, and it was picked apart by this Judith. I forget what her name was. It started with a K, in Alaska, an academic in Alaska, right? And she managed to it took her almost a year to wrestle the data that this report was based on out of the researcher's kung fu grip, right? And then she gets 300. Then she gets 300 pages, not collated, of data, just like dumped in her mailbox. Okay, and she has to sort through it, and then she's looking at it, and she's like, "Oh well, yeah, they interviewed both boys and girls, and both boys and girls agreed that boys got more attention from teachers in the classroom, right? But what they didn't include in the final report was that both boys and girls agreed that that attention was negative."
All right.
Next time code?
Yes, next time code. Just do it.
All right. I'm going to do it. This is just checking what this is called. The responsibility of media creators.
And in terms of changing my algorithm, no, it didn't take long, though it still has an impact now. So, I've kept those accounts. I lurk. I'm a lurker rather than I don't declare who I am. But that I still see a lot of that stuff. And
do you mean the responsibility of media creators to gaslight boys, basically?
Oh no, but he's like I look, but I don't reveal who I am. Yeah, because the internet's a rough place, right? And if you don't know how to toughen up, right, then don't engage, right? Okay, so you look at the feedback, you don't reveal who you are. Fine, that's fine, right? But at least he's looking at the feedback.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, yeah, no, I will throw down with anybody on the internet. Like you can go ahead and freaking try me. Just fucking try me. Right? I've had it. At this point, I've had it. And I don't give a fuck. Right? Like, I don't have a job to look out for. I don't have no prestige to look out for. I live in a crappy, tiny little house in a shit neighborhood. They just turned the hotel. You remember that hotel right near my house, Allison and Brian? Yeah, they turned it into a fucking homeless halfway house.
Yikes. Huh.
That's like 4 blocks away.
Jeez. All right, let's play some more.
Long. I think there's research that it takes 23 minutes or something like that for it. Just if you're just generally browsing for you to come across this stuff, it's not. It's very, very easily consumed.
Okay. And Emily, did you with your research?
And what's the problem with it?
Sorry, go
Did
on.
you? Did
So
it happen with your
they're
research
going
as well?
to, these people are going to pin all of the shit. Like, literally, they are discriminating against boys.
Yeah.
They're poisoning them with drugs to make sure that they are compliant. They are subjecting them to harsher punishments. They're removing all recognition of the bad behavior of girls, not to mention any punishment of girls. And all of this stuff, they're just expecting boys to swallow, and they're going to blame any kind of ill effect of their own actions on media, presumably media that recognizes that these are not things you do to people that you regard to be human.
Yeah, no, it's like basically, and you go to R the Red Pill as a woman, it's a rough place. You go to any kind of red pill, manosphere, Rollo Tomasi, Andrew Tate, Kevin Samuels, R.I.P., right? Any kind of place like that, right? Where you have men who are unapologetically masculine and don't put up with shit from women, right? And you go there as a woman, it's rough, right? But you can learn a lot. Like, you can learn a lot about what men think, what men feel, how men view themselves, how men view women, right? In general, and, and how what they think would make women be better, which is something that's not allowed to be even talked about, right? This is what drives me crazy, right? Men need to change themselves. Men and boys need to be better, and men need to be better, and blah 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 blah. Have you, like, is there any kind of mainstream conversation allowed as to how women can be better? We're not even allowed to call Lizzo fat. Right? She's a big, beautiful woman, and she's healthy at any size. And actually, we're kind of mad at her for losing weight because she's making all the rest of us fatties feel bad about ourselves.
Let's
Like,
get another time code in.
I'm sorry.
Or maybe
but
not.
unless and until it is permissible within the mainstream to say, you know what, she probably shouldn't have fucked that guy after fucking 3 other guys and having 3 guys' babies, and now she's knocked up. Probably not the best choices in the world, especially since 2 of those guys are in jail and 1 of them's unemployed, and none of them are going to pay child support, and now she's on welfare. Okay? And the guy who can't pay child support, he's going to prison too for failure to pay child support. Okay? So, yeah, no, maybe she could have made better decisions. Maybe she could have lived a healthier lifestyle. Maybe she could have actually had some self-respect and not opened her legs to any kind of fucking thug that came along that made her pussy tingle. Okay, maybe she could have made better choices, right? It's literally like, Brian, were you there in the room when it was Tommy Sotomayor and that one, it was the panel discussion?
Dude,
and
I was on the panel. I was next to Tommy Sotomayor. We were looking at each other.
You were sitting in between them, and he's
I bonded with him over that conversation.
Face palming every time she opens her mouth, because she's 4 boys and she's against single, but she was a single mother twice, right? And she had an excuse, right? And it's just and I'm looking at Tommy, and Tommy's just like this. He's just
we're just looking at each other and she was actually upset that we did not jump on the celebrate single moms bandwagon. Because she had to on the one hand talk about the importance of these things, but her ego was not allowing her to say anything bad about her own. Apply it to herself. Like she had been, no, I'm a single mom and it was good when I did it. It's but that's the problem. You have to just suck it up and say, that was wrong. That was a mistake. I can only hope and pray that my children turn out okay as a result. But this should be something that we don't want. This is not preferable. It was
bad choices on my part, bad decisions. And I did have to live with them, and I did my best to compensate for my mistakes. Right? And that's all you have to say.
But I did
my best to make up for my mistakes.
She couldn't do it.
She couldn't. I mean, she couldn't even admit that when we
tried, and when we tried to point that out, she got angry with us. It basically turned into, oh, now this is real misogyny right here. I mean, she didn't say that, but that's kind of what was implied, But anyway, let's play the next time code. Yeah, I mean, until you unplug from that, you're never going to get out of it. It's just an endless cycle.
With your changing of your algorithms, or you didn't do that?
I'm not on social media.
Oh,
so I don't.
That's good, because she would get roasted.
I
don't have. I will have an algorithm through many other things, but specifically on social media, I wouldn't have had different videos coming up to me because I don't look.
All that stuff was my responsibility.
Your responsibility. Yes. Okay, so you can't unsee those things. In terms of marketing misogyny, how are they making their money? Is it through advertising? Is it through some of the influencers promoting things, or how are they or is it you're talking about platforms making the money out of?
Yeah, I think I'm talking about everyone making money.
Why do they care about?
They're platforming misogyny. You have to care.
The idea is
why
that
do they care about the money?
No, but no. Their idea is, it's kind of like when Don Lemon went to a boat rally for Trump, right? And he's interviewing people, and he interviews these obviously well-off boomers who own a really nice fishing boat, probably go out fishing for marlin and shit, right? And he's interviewing them why are you? He's like, why are you here? I mean, you're doing fine. I mean, you own this great boat, and you're doing fine, right? And it's there's this idea that as long as people have theirs, right, they aren't going to care about. And I think that was probably on the part of Don Lemon. That question was a confession through projection, right? He got his. He's worth $5 million. He's set for life. He doesn't have to fucking care about anything else, right? And so he's genuinely perplexed that some well-off boomers with probably a net worth of about $4 million would even care about the coming generations, right? That they would even care about that. And it's and I'm thinking to myself, right, this question about money, right? And it really hits home for me, because it took me, almost a year to monetize, about 8 months to monetize my channel with ads, right? Because I didn't want to seem like I was cashing in. And then, took a while longer for me to put up a PayPal button, start a Patreon, which I then canceled when Sargon got booted off the platform. And I don't collect really any money. I was never really lucrative. I mean, I think my best month was $2,800 altogether, right? And
this particular side of the topic is not.
But what I'm saying is, they think, right? How is this monetized, right? they think the only reason why somebody would actually be doing this is for money.
That's because this is the reason they're not doing what they do. It's money, clout, lots and lots of money. Yeah, power.
And it's like, yeah, no, money, clout, being perceived as someone who should be listened to, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why they're doing it. They don't do it because they actually care.
Oh yeah, look at those financials. They are offering almost no services to women, but making huge amounts of money at it. Continue, Karen.
But it's just like this really shows where they're at themselves, right? That the first thing they ask about is money, right? How are they monetizing misogyny, right? Do they make the money? Do the platforms make the money, right? Like the only reason that somebody could actually speak up on topics like this in this way, saying these things, is to make money, right? And I'm sorry, but most of these people who watch this content that we're talking about, right? They're not made of money either, right? So it's like, probably more people like people who are giving that kind of masculine, positive, traditionalist, red pill kind of spiel, right? Like Andrew Tate and those guys. They probably make more money than men's rights activists do, right? And I think that's always been the case, right? But,
well, there was something really interesting that when I went to Washington, D.C., I met with a lobbyist, and he said something really interesting to me. He said, one of the reasons why men's issues don't get anywhere is because look at you guys. You guys are poor as church mice. Yep. Nobody wants to be part of poverty. Even if it's right, nobody they just don't want it. It's like you guys you give off an aura of always needing money, and it's like, it's not like needing money but like that we don't live big lives. We don't live like Andrew Tate. We don't have like gold Corvettes and tons of women dripping off of us.
Well, and there's actually a lot of, I was going to say there's probably a lot of guys that are making Andrew Tate-like content, but the only one that gets attention is Andrew Tate because he's rich. So like, I think part of this has to do with the image they're trying to like attach, right? So
it's because he's rich and because he's involved in things that are unsavory, right? Like the cam girl stuff, right?
Yeah,
but he's made himself a really easy target.
Yeah, but it's low-hanging fruit. Like what they're doing is like with Don Lemon. Why did he go to where the rich people were to ask them about Trump? I don't think it was because he was just like trying to get to the bottom of anything. I think he was trying to make an association for his audience of rich people to Trump, which is to say, look, rich people like this guy. He's the guy for the rich people. You hate rich people, right? So you should hate this guy because he. You know what I'm saying? It's like an association thing they're trying to create. So we as I'm a very poor person. Okay. I mean, I'm grateful for what I have. I'm supposed to hate rich people because they're rich, but I don't. But there's a constant pressure from people to say, don't you hate that rich guy because he's taking something from you that you deserve? Is trying to create this resentment and this envy. And I think that was what Don Lemon was trying to do with his audience because why wouldn't he go to normal blue collar working class people that vote for Trump? Well, because that would expose the fact that there were working class people that had interest in this for reasons that were completely pragmatic that you could not possibly, like attach like a negative stigma to because they're poor and you're not supposed to hate poor people because it makes you a bad person. And with this, they're doing the same thing. They're like, there are plenty of manosphere creators that are not rich, but those guys don't get attention because that doesn't look good. It's like, when they bring up incels, for example, they have to like construct a bunch of made up shit. Like it's a movement. It's not a movement. It's just a bunch of guys in a bad position. Why would anyone want to be an incel? Like it's something to be. But they call it that because they're trying to create, and what do they do in terms of like how do they characterize it? Well, they pick like the people that they could easily associate with the worst possible behavior, even if those people don't actually qualify. Guys like Alec Manassian, who, what turned out that he was just having a really hard time at his job, or Elliot Rodger, who, by all accounts, basically just hated men because his mother or his stepmother abused him, and it had nothing to do with his like standing socially. But that doesn't matter because it's not convenient. So they just say, oh yeah, those are the incels right there, right? And so I think that with this, they're trying to figure out like, okay, there must be something sinister here. Maybe it's rich people exploiting poor boys and men that are low status. So what's the grift, right? And it's like, maybe there isn't a grift. Maybe there's boys that are looking for help and these guys offer to them. And maybe not, like Andrew Tate is not like the final boss of that. Maybe he's just a guy and he just happens to be rich and of high status enough that he gets the attention of the media because that's what they look at. It's the same thing. Like, why do feminists always say that, such and such tiny percentage of Fortune 500 company CEOs are women? Because it's the apex fallacy. They're doing the same thing. They're applying the apex fallacy to this conversation around gender, and they don't see any of the plebs. So I mean, like that's what I think is going on.
Yeah.
So all right, let's jump ahead to, well, there might be more on this misogyny thing, I think. So let me listen a little bit more to this. Otherwise, I'll jump ahead to the next bit.
Of the whole thing. And again, I'm not someone that's specialist enough to be able to answer that question.
Okay. And in terms of the social media used, what sort of social media was primarily being used by young people?
I went all over. I was on X. I was on TikTok. I was on Insta. It was everywhere. It wasn't like you can say, oh, it's this spot or this spot.
Okay. I mean, it's just that we've had evidence from faith
Hold on, let me
groups
finish this
as well as part of community cohesion, and they had said that there's been a notable change since Elon Musk took over X, for example. A lot of the Jewish groups don't bother even trying to engage with it now to take down anti-Semitic material.
Okay, well, she's just trying to make another association thing. So, like, when Elon Musk took over X, he made it more free speechy, and edgy Groyper types are on X, calling out Jewish influence and stuff. And of course, Jews got mad, or a lot of them, like the more activist-y types, like the Anti-Defamation League, and they're like, look at all this anti-Semitism, because that's their job, is to find it, and they always do. And she's basically saying, look at how bad X is because of this other thing. So it's a bunch of people sniffing their own farts and basically pointing at X and trying to blame Elon Musk for that. But essentially, she's trying to do is she is poisoning the well of social media by saying, look at all the anti-Semitism, misogyny is basically the same thing. So, of course, we can't define anti-Semitism either. It just means criticizing the government of Israel at this point. But that's where we are. So it's like criticizing women is misogyny, having an opinion.
Well, but then there's also the there's also the Trump suing or going after Harvard for their anti-Semitism. I'm always confused by which anti-Semitism is the correct anti-Semitism, because it seems like it's, the left and the extreme right can agree on that there's something up with the Jews. They just don't know what. They're not exactly agreed on what is up with them, but they are agreed. I'm just saying.
I think on that front, no, I get it, but I that just tells me that the extreme right is not that different from the left. Like if the only criteria to be extreme right is that you just happen to be a white person that believes in these things, something's wrong with that entire framework, and it doesn't make sense. So I think that those guys are leftists too, like those like white wignats. Those guys are just leftists that have different skin color. So. Or the same, because a lot of their worst enemies are people who look like them. Like like they don't seem to understand that. I mean, this is a bit of a digression, but what they don't seem to get, like the white nationalist types, what they don't seem to get is that unless they do something about white women, they're never going to fix their problems ever. And they have no idea how to do it except to shame them, and it's not going to work. So good luck with that, guys. You're done.
They don't even shame them.
No, they don't. They try to
excuse what they do on
they excuse
their
it. Well, they blame the men who are like, you know, dark skinned or whatever for, I don't know, like enchanting those women, because like that's what I'm saying. Like they're just losers. Like they can't do anything but LARP. They have no hope. They can't change anything because their number one obstacle, just like everybody else's, comes back to the problems between men and women. Until they address that, none of this other shit matters. So Zerang says white nationalists are collectivists as a membership. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like the left doesn't like the Jews, and these white nationalist guys don't like the Jews. Guess what? They're leftists too. That's the truth. So anyway, but okay, so I think that's the end of this time code. I'm at 3212. So let me see the future of the role of public service broadcasters. Okay, so now they're talking about straight up getting into the ways that government funded media, which is weird because all of the UK's media is government funded, isn't it? But like how they could change things. And what really is bothersome about this, I'll play the clip first.
The summer, is there any merit, do you think, when you saw those algorithms that actually this isn't, it's not always advertised as harmful content, it is buried within?
Yeah, and that's why I think it should be an all over social media ban.
I wonder if they would consider our content harmful.
Oh, there should be an all over social media ban.
There's this and there's that, and you can separate that off. And if we talk to them this and that, and if you talk to the amount of kids that take their phones to bed with them, you will be shocked at how many do. It is assumed, because I think the chattering classes, you know what I mean, like, you know, might restrict phone content upstairs, that most kids leave their phones downstairs and go up without it. Actually, an awful lot do. I wouldn't guess at the numbers, because I don't think there are numbers out there. But it, you know, and that thing of what a kid is consuming at 2 a.m. when they wake up and they feel alone, that's the stuff to stop, whatever that is, because it's speaking to a part of them that needs help, and this stuff doesn't help them.
Thank you.
How do you know it doesn't help them? That's what I want to know.
How do you know that what you're doing is helping them?
Yeah.
Like, honestly, that's the elephant in the room. Like, these are the people who are responsible for overt and continuous discrimination against boys.
Well, these are the ones, regardless of you know how they've handled it. These are the people, right? These elites, right? They've been the people responsible for safeguarding and guiding the younger generations for how long now?
How many generations?
How many generations?
Probably since World War II, maybe a little after.
Or a little earlier, right?
Or a little,
And you know, so if there's something wrong, with young people these days, right? You might look to yourselves, because if they wake up at 2 a.m. and feel empty and lonely, right? Then that's on you. That's not on social media, right? Which is there to fill the void you left, right? That's on you.
Yep. All right. Let's see. So yeah, we're still talking about. I think there's a little bit more in this time code.
And does anybody have any other questions before we go to panel 2?
I actually just wondered, it was something you were saying with the fact it was made by Netflix and all the international money that needs to be raised now too. PSBs are, as you said, being squeezed in this country. Should we be looking more to the public service broadcasters to have more of a responsibility to make dramas which are thought-provoking? Because thinking back through the ones which have been the post office drama, right back to Kathy Come Home, I think the only one that was done by a public service broadcaster was It's a Sin by Channel 4. So do we need to request or put pressure on or suggest that actually that's a place where the public service broadcasters have a role, is to do that sort of drama?
Oh, do the sort of drama that shames and blames young men?
Of course.
Yeah. Keep it up. Keep doing it. You know,
Yeah.
you're just
Surely it will work
lucky.
this
You're just
time.
lucky your public broadcasters,
Well, what
you know, have revenue from people having to buy TV licenses.
So what does it mean when you say that like she's basically proposing that more of this content should exist and it should be the responsibility of public broadcasters to put it out? What does she mean by that? Well, what she means is public broadcasting is paid for by the taxpayer. So you pay for it whether you watch it or not. And of course, when something is paid for by the taxpayer, the budget is whatever. You can spend on whatever you need to spend on it because you act like there is no limit. So you can do it as big as you want and as expensive as you want and as frequently as you want to. Now, it's kind of ironic because in the UK, as far as I know, all of their broadcasting is public. It's all BBC owned. It's government funded stuff. With like unless you get Sky News, maybe, I don't know. But unless you get like a streaming service like Apple TV, Disney Plus, Netflix. But even then, those places are all ideologically captured anyway. So they're gonna be giving you what you want. And I think regionally, the governments can have some say in what is available and what is not, right? Depending on the region. So
I don't understand how these are the same people who can look at Putin and say, state-run media, state-run state propaganda. Really? Really? While you're literally having an open conversation in a parliamentary committee, right, about whether we need to force broadcasters, whether the government needs to force broadcasters to produce content of a certain type.
Yeah. And this old woman basically is like, this guy, the guy who created the show that's here, he's autistic apparently or something. He's on the spectrum. And he is at the very least saying, these boys are in need of something. Now, of course, he thinks it's what he's putting out there, and that's probably not true, but at least he knows that there is something. But this old woman is like, we're not doing enough to control people, and we're not spending enough money on it.
To control, blame, and shame men.
Yeah.
Young men.
We're not doing enough.
Yeah.
So let's get his response, because I think this is pretty telling too.
I think they do feel that responsibility. Yeah. And I think if you watched Reunion, I know I'm now advertising a show, I was not part of Reunion, let be clear, but you know what I mean? Like, if you watch a show like Reunion, that has fundamentally challenged the way that stories are told. By using sign language to the extent it does, it's changed the way that drama works, and the way that BSL works is different to the syntax of the English language, and
the subtitles don't work the same way.
Exactly. So everything has changed because of the way that they told that show, and they told it authentically, and they told it properly, and they told it with a disabled writer. So I don't think it's that no one cares. I think it's that it's really hard to make a show that has an impact. I've tried for a very long time, and you can have little impact, and you can have little impact, and you can have little impact, but what catches fire, you don't know. I would say I May Destroy You was made by the BBC. That had a huge impact. There's a whole number that I could list that I think challenged our traditional forms of storytelling, and that came from all sorts of different places.
Everyone you can tell he's fucking autistic, because he's talking about storytelling. He's not talking about themes. He's talking about,
but he also he did say right at the end there, and that was the thing I wanted to point out. It just took him a while to get there. That basically everyone on his team that worked on this show used to work for the public broadcasting. So it doesn't matter that, like, basically they already are public broadcasters just working on something that was being distributed privately. But maybe that's well, anyway. So that's the thing that he says at the end there.
Can I just point something out? So we've had this supposed, well, not supposed, but we've had this series that explores the deaf community, I assume. But there's nothing that really explores men as their own kind of thing. Even though if you think about it, men's cognition is unique to them. Like they have a unique cognitive nature. I know this might alienate some people, but you know, it's unique to them. They have a unique approach to the world around them. They have a unique kind of hormonal system. But there's never anything presented in the media that explores that as its own kind of thing that should exist as valid, like they do with the deaf or the trans community or women or Black community or ethnic communities. Have you noticed that? That's never explored as something that is a valid thing. It's always in terms or seen in terms of how it affects other groups.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of shows that, like in movies and stuff like that, that are made that
in the past, yeah, sure.
Well, even today, right? That show healthy masculinity, flawed masculinity, but men seeing the world the way men see the world, right? Whether they're a dirty cop or whether they're
let me put it. Let me qualify it a bit.
But
would these individuals consider that to be a legitimate